Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to the Edify Foundation channel. Today we're here with Aryamaan Verma, a friend and someone who I got to meet a few months back, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But Aryamaan actually graduated from UBC. He did his bachelor's in integrated sciences, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And the reason I have Aryamaan on today is because he's a second-year medical student at UBC. And the goal is really for this video to really expose people to, the different pathways and what it takes to get into medicine. And I thought that Aryamaan would really be able to help us, learn more about that. So without further ado, I'll let Aryamaan, introduce himself and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Amir, for having me. My name is Aryamaan, as Amir said, and I'm in second year in medical school at UBC right now. And I'm super excited to be here. And I'm really happy to share my journey with you guys and give you an insight into sort of what my path has been and just how diverse and different it can be. Just give you guys insight to that.
Yeah, of course. And, before we jump into like how you got into medicine, can you I know you're in second year now, just if you could give us a little quick rundown of, what was first year like? Yeah. What does it look like now? And I guess what will it look like for you in the next term? And just day to day, just some general stuff so people can get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, totally. So med school has been awesome so far. And just to give you guys sort of a breakdown into how med school works. So med school in Canada is typically 4 years long, where they split up your preclinical years versus your clinical years. So years 1 and 2, you're sort of more in the classroom and you're learning more of the basics, learning all the topics and all the content. And at the same time, we do have a day where we're in the hospital learning clinical skills. We're also in our family med preceptor's office, learning how to take histories, interview people, do your physical examinations, and just build a strong foundation for when we enter our year 3 and year 4, which is our main clinical year. And in that year, you start kind of always in the hospital, really. And you're doing multiple rotations, you call them. For example, in internal medicine, surgery. So year 3 and 4 is sort of what you see, I guess, in popular TV shows like Grey's Anatomy and stuff. So that sort of comes later in year 3s and 4. So I'm in first year and I'm in second year right now. And second year has been quite similar to first year, I'd say. And we're just, again, sort of building up and continuing to expand our knowledge and content. And UBC's program is special because it's one of the few ones that spirals. So, for example, what we learned in first year, we sort of come back to it in second year. So we're re-exposed to it to some extent, again, for the second time. So we're in lectures, doing lectures about 3 days of the week. 1 day is in the hospital and 1 day is at our family med preceptor's office. And that's sort of how our week is like.
Yeah. And what Aryamaan mentioned about the spiral, I guess, curriculum, and we mentioned 4 years and all of how it's structured, and I feel like this is mainly for UBC, and it tends to be on average most schools. Mm-hmm. But again, every school is a little bit different, and recently SFU opened up, so I want to actually ask you a little bit about that, so people get to learn about different things happening as the days are going on, and that just came to my mind. So do you want to give a little bit of a spiel about what's SFU's program, whatever totally.
And
how it compares to UBC?
Yeah. So Canada has, I think it has had 2 schools where med school is not 4 years long, but it's actually 3 years long. And I think those are Calgary and McMaster historically. But now SFU has opened up a new med school. And I was actually following this when I was applying because I was waiting for SFU to open, right? Because you're the more schools, the better it is. But this year they finally opened their application cycle. And so they're going to be taking on new students aboard in September 2026. Yes. Yeah, so I think that's opened up more spots for BC as a province to take more medical students, which is great. Because I think there's so many awesome people out there. 100%. I think just getting in is, as you know, very competitive into med school. I think that's a very positive step in that direction. And SFU is actually one of the 3-year med schools now. It's gonna be interesting to see how that all plans out in September. And I'm speaking to a few people that I know have applied there. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated.
That's awesome. And, Aryamaan mentioned the competitiveness, and, a lot of the videos we're creating today is mainly for high school students. So we're going to talk a little bit about Aryamaan's high school experience and what it was for him, immigrating to Canada, getting into university, and then we'll also get him to give us more info about medical school, because I guess with even a lot of high school students that I have got to meet in the workshops, they're thinking about med. Even when I was in high school, even though you're trying to get into science, you're still thinking about med, and it's early planning and getting more information always helps.
For sure, 100%.
So with that being said, give us a little rundown of what was high school like. Tell us about when you came here. Which high school did you go to? And I know you've told me off camera a little bit about the story we just talked before this, but yeah, just give them a rundown of what was high school for you and what was that process getting into the sciences.
Totally. I'm very happy to share that. And I'm a newcomer to Canada, so I came here during grade 9, and I moved to Canada from Dubai. I joined high school here in grade 9, and for me it was like a very different and completely new environment for me. Even like the taking semesters, that wasn't something that was very common back where I was. You sort of had the same classes the whole year round, and just the variety of classes that are here in Canadian schools is like, it's amazing. Back in Dubai, there really wasn't that many options. It's pretty standard classes like math, science, and all that.
Right.
Business, but here there was like woodwork. There was band, music, foods. Foods is awesome. So there was like just so much more that you can do and explore. So that was a pleasant surprise for me as well. I was in high school at here in White Rock and Earl Marriott, and I applied to get into the IB program, which is in grade 11 and 12. And I'm sure you guys must have heard about the IB program to some extent, but it's kind of a more advanced curriculum where it's a bit more rigorous compared to the normal program. And you take on more things depending on your interests, if that's in math, biophysics, or whatever it is. So I applied to get into Semiahmoo Secondary, and I was fortunate to get into that. However, that year is when COVID happened, exactly. And so, unfortunately, I was required to come in person for that program. And for me, that was a challenging situation to be in, because I was living with my family and my elderly grandparents and baby brother at that time. So they had some existing health concerns, and as a family, keeping that in mind, I had to take the decision to drop out of the IB program. And so at that time, it was a very big letdown. I was very excited to start IB, and I knew that it would really help me further down in my career. So I dropped out of IB sort of in that very first month when someone tested positive for COVID. And so I dropped back out into the normal BC high school curriculum. And at that point it seemed like a letdown, but I talked to counselors, I talked to senior students, and that's where I actually found out that I might have enough credits to graduate a year early. And so what I did that year was I took on multiple courses compared to the standard 8 courses you take. So that time I took around 12 courses I think that year to graduate early. And I was fortunate enough to get into UBC for my Bachelor's of Science as well. So that's sort of my journey from high school to university and what it's been for me. Before we get into learning a little bit more about Aryamaan's journey in like first year and second year of undergrad, one thing that you hit on a little bit was the IB program and then comparing that to regular curriculum. So I know for some of our audience, it's going to be students in grade 11 and 12. So for some of those students, whether they can do IB or not, it's not really going to be helpful information because they're already kind of passing that stage. But if there's like younger students or even parents watching, because we talked a little bit about this, there's some advantages to doing IB. I want you to give a little bit of info about when is it a good idea to do IB? When is it not? Again, what are the advantages for what we talked about for getting into, like, for instance, med school or some, graduate programs? Oh, yeah, of course. In Canada, there's sort of the main high school system that you have, the BC. I think it's called the Dogwood Diploma, I believe. And then there are two other separate streams. One is called the IB program, and then one is called the AP program. And sort of the end outcome of both this IB and AP is quite similar. So the IB program and the AP program, they're more rigorous in the sense that they expose you to first year university level material in high school. So for example, AP Calculus, that's something that we both took during first year of undergrad, I believe. So you're exposed to that much earlier if you do the IB or the AP program. And at the end of your grade 12 year, you have the opportunity to write the IB exams or the AP exams, for which, if you get above a certain score, you can actually get credit for that in university. So during your first year, you can sort of avail that credit where you don't have to actually take those courses in first year university. So for example, that can be math, that can be English, it can be stats, it can be physics, it can, there's a whole range of that. And I think every school differs in what they offer for AP at least. AP is, I think, a bit more diverse than IB. IB is more structured, and AP is sort of, you can just like pick and choose any class you want. But IB, I think you have to like sort of take the entire thing all at once for all the IB courses. So that's kind of the advantage of doing these is you're better prepared for university, and you can also, as I said, I guess, sort of in a sense, skip those classes in first year university. So that's kind of the advantage of IB and AP, and I guess that's also what makes it more challenging because you're in grade 11 and 12 and you're taking university level courses essentially at that time. So that can be the challenging part.
100%.
But yeah, that's sort of the pros and cons of IB, I think, in a nutshell.
Well, that was a perfect answer, and I really appreciate that you hit on that, because I feel like, I didn't know in high school this stuff. So it's really good to look into it early, and obviously I feel like if parents get to know about it, they can help their children, or if your cousin tells you, if you know people that are older, getting that information from them really helps. So now getting into undergrad, you mentioned integrated sciences. I guess first off, tell people what it was like to go into integrated sciences, and what's special about Aryamaan. We will talk about this. He actually didn't even finish his bachelor's. So what he did is something very, again, challenging and exceptional to get into med school with just 90 credits, because meaning that you get in 3 years into undergrad. So I want you to hit on a little bit, like, what did first year look like, and then what did it take for you to, and I'm curious to know, like, what did it really take? Whether, how much you were studying, ECs, kind of range of around that.
Yeah. So, no, for sure. I'd definitely love to share that. And I guess I'll also talk a bit about my interests in high school as well, and sort of how those translated into sort of me picking the degree that I picked. So in high school, I was very, very into sciences in general, sciences and math. If I'd had to say, I think math and bio were two of my best subjects, my favorite subjects. But in sort of grade 11 grade 10, 11, and even 12, I was really into computers. So I took this data science course online, and that exposed me to the world of machine learning back then, and sort of how you can apply that to anything, even healthcare and stuff. So I was really into computers, and I was also really into bio specifically. So, I was like very confused. I started looking into careers that, what can you do with this? So I knew that I did not have enough information to make that decision at that point. And so when I Googled more about UBC and I got to know what degrees they offer and stuff, the Bachelor of Science really stood out just because they offer so many majors. Like, they offer bio, they offer computer science, they offer combined degrees like bio and computer science. And then they also offer really flexible options as well, like integrated sciences, which is what I picked. And that sort of allows you to pick in multiple subjects essentially and sort of discover your interest and what you're interested in more. So that was my sort of rationale behind picking integrated sciences. So I went into first year, and I kind of took all the courses. I took computers, and I also took your typical first year bio, chem physics, and all that math and stuff. And I think by the end of first year, I realized that computers wasn't it for me. I think I really enjoyed bio a lot more, especially, the human body, learning about that. I am still interested in computers, but I feel like I'd be missing out on the patient experience and developing those connections. So first year of university was a time where I really explored a lot. I took on a lot of new roles, whether that was, at clubs at university, or if volunteering at hospitals, for example. And I think that was a very pivotal experience and moment as well, when I volunteered at the hospital. And, after a few weeks or 2 or 3 months, I really developed strong relationships, and I had so many meaningful conversations with the residents in long-term care homes. And, when I talked to senior students as well, and I realized that that's such a big aspect of healthcare and medicine as well, as, having that conversation with your patients and that human interaction daily. I think that was super important to me. I really enjoyed having that. And, also my love for the human body as well. So my decision to pick medicine, I think it really solidified at the end of that first year, perhaps starting a second year. And it was, I'd say, a very thought out decision. It wasn't something, I didn't have an aha moment. I really took my time to explore and considered all the different factors. And I also knew that surgery was something that was super cool. And, to do surgery, you need to get into medicine and become a doctor, obviously. So yeah, that was sort of my thought process in general, an overview of what made me want to go into medicine by the end of first year. So that's I did that, and then I picked integrated sciences, which is a degree that allows you to quite flexibly, mix and match your interests. So I myself chose physiology, which is learning about how the body works, and also neuroscience as well. So those are my sort of two integrations, and those are the biggest subjects that interested me the most. And my second year and my third year was sort of based around those areas.
So I guess you took the MCAT to get in, third year. Is it in summer of second year? Is that when you did?
That's right.
Wow, okay.
So I wrote the MCAT right before the start of third year. So I spent the summer, those 3-4 months, studying for the MCAT. And then I took it at the end of August, before the start of third year. And that's, in fact, when I applied to get into med, which was that same September.
Wow. Yeah. So, and that's the impressive part, because, for me, for example, I started my ECs, or extracurricular activities. You mentioned first year. I started, I think, end of first year, maybe beginning of second year. So, again, that really, I feel like, depends on the person. I feel like if you're acclimating well to the studying and you're doing well with your classes, then it's good to get into the ECs early on. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, for sure. I think getting into ECs and, taking things that interest you, things you're passionate about. And also they're a great way to explore things, in my opinion. I was involved in a lot of clubs at UBC, and I think that really helped. So yeah, just taking that time to explore, doing those ECs, as I mentioned, the data science course that I took, I think that was sort of more different than traditional computer science and its applications. And in fact, I don't think data science was actually one of the majors that you could pick in Bachelor of Science. I think now it's a separate degree of itself.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely recommend, getting involved in extracurriculars and doing what you're passionate about. So me, I took on the data science course because I was really fascinated by stats and computers. AP stats was actually the only AP class I took in high school. Wow. So I really ended up liking statistics compared to, I guess, more traditional math. But yeah, so that was super interesting to me. So, even now I'm involved to some extent in learning about AI, and that's a hobby that's on the side for me.
That's awesome.
And then I was involved in a non-profit organization where I founded a chapter here in BC of a Canadian organization, and I recruited volunteers. We held fundraising events. We did awareness events, at, for example, senior care homes. And that was like a really good opportunity to meet new people. And then I also tutored my peers as well. So for example, grade 12 students when I was in university and younger students back in high school. So I think just like putting yourself out there and just getting involved in things that you like doing, I think that's a great way. And reaching out to people for help, I always recommend doing that. Talking to your seniors, I think that's a really good thing to do. Yeah,
that's awesome. And Aryamaan is actually helping for. If you're watching this video, you might have come across the medicine video, the field of medicine, because Aryamaan is helping with filming that one as well. And I think he's going to go into a lot more detail about the pre-med, med, and even post-med journey and why we emphasize ECs and why it's valued. But moving a little bit away from, I guess, the undergrad now and where you are now with med. I mean, we talked about his day-to-day. I'm wondering, again, so your second year, give us, we talked about how second year is more, I guess, preclinical. So you're mainly in the classroom. Obviously, you're doing your family medicine rotations. But third and fourth is when it gets real. So when you're in the hospital. I guess, how are you feeling about that? I mean, that's going to be in a couple, I guess, next year.
Yeah, it's going to be next year.
And a little bit about Aryamaan and I actually met at a research conference. So I want to get a little bit, how is research? Why is research important? Why do med students do research? Just for people to get an understanding of that. Because, we're going to talk a little bit about research as well in future videos. So I think that's kind of cool for people to get to know.
Totally. Yeah. So talking a bit about research, you'll hear, if you're interested in medicine, even in undergrad, you'll hear that research is super important, to get into med school, and it's something that's really important to have. And I totally agree with that. I think research is a big part of becoming a physician as well, constantly learning. But at the time that I applied to med school, I was involved in research. I was involved in, I think, 2 or 3 labs at the time. And I was continuing to do research up until the end of third year, undergraduate research. But I did not have any completed research outputs for my med application. So that was actually blank for me in terms of research outputs. So you don't need to have, a certain amount of papers published or posters presented.
Right.
As I said, everyone's journey is different, and everyone's journeys in terms of, I guess, where you're going to stand at the time of application, that's going to be different. You're going to have different strengths, different weaknesses. So I think research is pretty important undergrad. In medicine as well, research is also something that's very important. UBC has this, one of our classes that we take, it's called Flex, and that's essentially your research class. So for the entire first year, we have, every week we have sort of like a workshop that we do where we're learning about sort of the basics of research, statistics, research design, critiquing papers. And I think that that's super important for all physicians to know, especially, while reading the most recent research that gets published or clinical guidelines and all that stuff. But we are learning about that in first year, and then at the end of first year, we have an allotted time, which is, I think, a couple weeks where you get to just do research for those weeks. And it's called Flex. And the reason it's sort of, I guess, called Flex is because it's so flexible. You can sort of pick what you want to do. You can reach out to profs. There's a catalog where you can select projects to take on. And it doesn't have to be research. It can be developing educational materials, for example, for the next class coming in. And so that's sort of the role research plays. And even now, as second year is going on, we have Flex where I'm continuing to do research. Research is something that's obviously really important. And by the time you're done at the end of your med degree, you apply to a system called CARMS, which is the residency match. And that's essentially the training that you undergo before becoming your desired specialist, whether that's family med, whether that's cardiac surgery, or whether that's, neurosurgery, or anything can be. So research, comes in really handy there because it's one of the parts of your application. In terms of that, that's sort of where research stands.
Well, that's a perfect explanation. And again, in the other videos, Aryamaan will talk about CARMs and matching and residency a little bit. I mean, for people watching, I mean, if you're in high school, that's way beyond. And even, you know, I mean, for Aryamaan, he's going to start getting more
Even
and more.
for me, it's like...
Is it still early?
It's still early for me, at least. Yeah.
That's true. But it's just getting this stuff across, just people, so people know. Because I feel like even for me, I have a few friends in medicine, and, you know, it's just, you know, getting to learn and hear this info it's very beneficial, I feel like.
Yeah. I think definitely knowing it, sort of the back of your mind, I think it's really helpful just to know it.
Yeah.
You know, to know the details, but I think you should know sort of the process and what happens. I think that's just having basic understanding. Yeah.
100%. And, you know, before we leave, like, research, I want to say, and I think Aryamaan will agree with this as well, within research, there's just so much.
Yeah.
Like, what people can do and what they decide to do, whether it's diseases you focus on, methodology. I guess, you know, what do you think about that? Like, it can be anything, right?
Yeah, well, research, it can be sort of anything. You know, it can be done remotely. You can be working in a lab doing research. So it really varies, and it's a lot on your interest and also what's available to you at the time. That's a big factor, I think. So yeah, research is extremely broad. You know, I think overall there's like clinical research. And then there's more basic science or laboratory research, where that's sort of the focus. But yeah, there's like research, I think it's like you can devote like a whole video to itself.
100%.
There's so much complexity and depth that you can go into for research, I think. Yeah.
That's one of my goals with the modules. I think it'll be very beneficial to get a research one. But I guess moving away from career now, I mean, we talked about how you immigrated to Canada in grade 9. Part of this project is we're putting a lot of emphasis on supporting newcomers, because both you and I came as newcomers. A lot of people involved in Edify were newcomers. And I feel like, again, if you don't have strong social ties, people that have been here for a long time, it's kind of hard to acclimate. Or not acclimate, but hard to, I guess, know the way. And really, there's potential barriers, right? So I guess I want you, you know, we talked about your immigration story, but I guess with tips, lessons, anything, whether it's personal life, professional life, what would you, you know, want to share with some students who are, again, whether they're grade 9, grade 11, grade 12, or even, you know, older students, whether they've, you know, coming after high school?
Yeah, totally. I think it can be, you know, it's super challenging coming as a newcomer to Canada. I've talked about sort of how different the school system is. So that in itself is, you know, that was a big challenge for me. Like, I didn't know there was such a thing as counselors, like where you'd go and you'd get to pick your courses in grade 8 and 9. There was these courses, and sort of the biggest, you know, question in my head was like, well, what do I really take? Like, if I want to, you know, go into the science, I was like, is taking this going to be beneficial for me, or is taking this going to harm me in any way? There's so many questions, and you know, as a newcomer, you really can make assumptions about things, and you don't really have anyone to clarify it for you.
That's true.
And the big thing is you don't know who to really ask about it. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is people not knowing where to ask questions, what to ask, and people also not knowing about, you know, certain opportunities that are available to them. For example, I didn't know that there was a thing called, you know, like you could graduate early. I really only found out about that once I talked to a senior student who was a year above me, and they mentioned that they were doing that process. So, you know, I think like there's so much that you can do, and I think really having a person to talk to, whether that's your counselor in school, whether that's your vice principal. And personally, what I found really helpful was also having a mentor who's older to you or a bit senior. So I took up an AP Stats class in grade 10, I believe. And at that time, there was a lot of grade 12 students in that class. So I ended up making, you know, lots of friends in that class. And I talked to those people, and they sort of told me about, you know, the UBC applications and all that. So they served as a very, I think, pivotal guide for me in that situation, navigating all those complexities. So I think the earlier you get to know about what you're up against in grade 12 or what to expect. It helps you plan a lot better, which is sort of what we're aiming to do with Edify. So I think locating, who can help you with certain topics, whether that's about academics, whether that's about clubs, whether that's about volunteering, navigating all that, knowing that is super helpful, I think. I also didn't know like much about volunteering. Where I came from, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't part of the culture. We didn't even know that was a thing or something that's due, or that you can work before the age of 18. That was also a new thing to me. So I feel like that's the biggest challenge as a newcomer, is like you don't know what to expect. Like you don't know what opportunities you have available. And I think if there's someone who can guide you through that process of learning all that, I think that would be super, super helpful for people to know. So overall, just like sum it up, like having a mentor, whether that's a senior student or having a counselor that can guide you, or they would be your vice principal or a teacher that you're very close to. For example, one of my grade 10 English teachers, she was also part of scholarships, so she knew a lot about university. So I talked to her after English quite a bit, and she sort of guided me on like, this is what to expect. Knowing the right resources. You can actually call UBC admissions and ask them questions that you have that are not clarified on their website, for example. So you can ask about all that stuff, and I think you should not hesitate to do that.
No, that's such a good point. And even, in the path that I am, like for me, I'm trying to get into med school, and for you, you're trying to get into, residency, and it's the same thing as high school to undergrad. And I think just to put my 2 cents, I think it's just get started early, and like, even if you can't find someone to help you, like just look online. Because even for me, I feel like you just have to try to look for the answers, and the answers will come. And I feel like in high school, especially, people are so much more open to helping. So really and of course, like you may ask one person and you may have a negative experience, but like, don't let that affect your,
of course,
like next steps, and keep on asking different people and get a lot of info. And I mean, that's what we're trying to do here as well. So that's such a good answer. Even applies to my life.
Totally. And even social media, I think that point you brought up, I've also contacted so many people to help me guide through that, whether when I was an undergrad, I contacted a lot of people who are in med school, and they were super helpful. I got so much advice from them, whether that was applications or how med school is in general. Is this something I want to do? Just learning about what the day-to-day is like for a career. I feel like that's the most important thing that you should know, and have a picture of like, what am I expecting, like once I'm done studying or once I'm graduated, how is the work actually going to be like? So getting an idea of that, and I think that's super helpful.
100%. I guess we're getting pretty close to wrapping up, and I really hope that some of this info we're sharing is useful. I guess just to get people to learn more about you, I guess what are some of the next steps? What are some goals you have? What are some things you're looking forward to, and where you're trying to go next? Just for people to get to understand your story.
Totally. So for me, I'm in second year right now, and by the end of second year, I'll be done with my preclinical years of med school, and I'll be going into third year, which is clerkship. And I'm just really excited and looking forward to that, because that's sort of the first moments where you're in the hospital all day, and you're rounding up on patients, you're talking to them directly for the whole day, you're talking to other healthcare workers, and sort of learning about the tasks they do and sort of how it functions all together. Like
100%.
You take all the knowledge in years 1 and 2, and then you're applying that in year 3. And year 3 is also the year where you get to explore all the different specialties that you can then apply for at the end of your med degree. So I'm super excited for that, and just like getting the chance to explore everything. I mentioned a few. There's surgery, there's internal medicine, there's psychiatry, there's family medicine, there's OB-GYN, there's peds, there's so many specialties. And I feel like getting a good exposure to everything and making sure that, okay, I can see myself doing this for the rest of my career. I think that's a big decision and 100%. A big thing on my mind as well. is, picking that and deciding that. So I'm just like super stoked in year 3 because I know it's going to be such a great learning experience.
100%.
And I'm just like excited to see all the studying, in lecture theaters. Like year 1 and 2, like I think naturally all of our class started to crave more clinical exposure. And I think in year 3 that's going to be fulfilled because we're just going to be thrown in there. And it's going to be an awesome experience by the end of the year. So that's the thing that's on my mind right now. And I'm just like super excited for that year. Yeah.
No, 100%. It's inspiring just listening to it. And, I really can't wait to see, where you take it and where you go. And I really hope that, you get what you want and, you get to build an amazing career.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that brings us to the end. I want to thank you again for coming on. I guess any final words or
No, well, thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome. I think the biggest advice I can give you guys is to explore everything that's out there. Don't be afraid to ask any questions. Make sure that, if you want something, you're working towards it and sort of just exploring everything that's available to you out there. Just trust that your path is different. Your journey is different. So, just like being mindful of that and just like taking it step by step at a time. I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give you and what I've learned.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Amir.
Thank you.